welcome. You've found your way to a place where history unfolds slowly, like mist curling through ancient trees, and where the past drifts gently into your thoughts as you settle in, perhaps already tucked beneath warm blankets or lying quietly in the stillness of night. Allow your mind to travel far from the present moment. Let the noise of the modern world soften and fade as we begin a journey deep into the heart of forgotten time. Imagine a dense jungle humming with the quiet persistence of life. The air is thick, warm, and still, fragrant with damp earth and crushed greenery. Towering ceiba trees rise like ancient sentinels, their roots twisting through stone and soil. Above, a tapestry of leaves filters the sunlight into shifting golden dapples. Beneath that emerald veil, something stirs not, the creatures of the forest, but the remnants of something far older. Beneath moss and vine, behind stone and shadow, lies the memory of a city that once thrived, with purpose, with ritual, with wonder. This is not a legend, spun from myth alone, nor merely the ruins of forgotten walls. This was once a city alive, with footsteps, with voices, with stories. A Mayan city, lost, buried, remembered only in fragments and echoes. In its day, it was part of one of the most advanced civilizations in the pre-Columbian world. Now, its stone temples slumber beneath the roots. Its plazas lie silent, its secrets scattered like leaves. Tonight, you will not need to dig or decipher. I will guide you gently through time and across soil, from the height of Mayan ingenuity to the mysteries that remain. We'll wander through the daily lives of its people, listen quietly to the stories carved into stone, and linger in the cool halls of temples where priests once spoke to the gods. We'll explore how such brilliance faded and what it left behind. So breathe slowly, let your thoughts settle. The jungle awaits, and in its quiet heart, the secrets of a lost Mayan city lie patiently, ready to be remembered. Let us begin. In a world long vanished, but through the slow, steady turning of millennia, the modern world recedes like the tide, replaced by something quieter. You begin to hear different sounds, not the hum of engines or the ping of devices, but the rhythmic scraping of stone tools, the gentle sweep of woven brooms across clay floors, the birdsong of tropical forests that echo through a village still untouched by electricity or machines. You are in a Maya settlement, perhaps not one of the mighty city-states like Tikal, or but a smaller community nestled between dense forest and cultivated fields. It is early morning. The jungle mist still clings to the leaves. The sun, though not yet fully risen, warms the land with its first faint touch. A woman stirs a pot over a low fire, its smoke curling through an opening in the roof. A child runs barefoot along a path of packed earth. An old man feeds the hens. It is a simple scene, but nothing here is casual or primitive. This world, though unfamiliar, is ruled by knowledge deep, inherited, sacred. The Maya civilization was not a fleeting spark of brilliance, but a sustained and evolving culture that stretched across more than 2,000 years. From their earliest ceremonial centers during the pre-classic period to the architectural marvels of the classic era, the Maya built not just cities, but entire systems of understanding, ways of measuring time, of observing the skies, of naming the gods, and placing the self within an ordered cosmos. They were mathematicians before numbers had numerals, astronomers before telescopes, philosophers before paper. Their worldview was not simply about survival, but about balance between people and nature, between rulers and the divine, between past and present, future and memory. To walk through a Maya city is to witness this balance turned to stone. The stepped pyramids, rising like man-made mountains, mimic sacred forms from their mythology, often imagined as the Wits, or sacred mountain. Atop these structures, ceremonies were performed to open portals to the divine. The gods were not above and apart from the world. They were within it, beneath it, beside it. Every direction had meaning. Every building had alignment. Cities were cosmograms, living maps of the universe. And yet, this architecture was never purely symbolic. It was social and political as well. The kings, known as Kayul Ajah or Holy Lords, presented themselves not merely as rulers, but as intermediaries between their people and the gods. Their rituals were not for spectacle, but for the renewal of the world itself. The ruler's body, and sometimes his blood, was seen as the most potent offering to maintain cosmic order. Imagine a ceremony. It is the evening of an equinox. The sun sets in perfect alignment with the temple stairs. On the plaza below, families gather, wearing embroidered cotton tunics, dyed with crushed insects and plant pigment. The air is filled with the scent of burning copal resin, sweet and pungent. Drums beat slowly. Shell trumpets wail. From within the temple, the ruler emerges adorned in quetzal feathers, jade ornaments, and obsidian blades. He speaks in tones practiced over years. His words are echoes of those who came before him. He is not simply a man, but a continuation of lineage, a bridge between the first creation and the present day. And what of that creation? The Maya believed the world had been created, not once, but several times. Each previous world had been destroyed, either by flood or fire, or by the displeasure of gods. The current era, which they dated to a beginning in 3114 BCE, was thought to be fragile, requiring renewal through ritual and observance. This belief shaped everything: their writing, their mathematics, their planning. Their calendar systems were a marvel of logic and precision. The Hab, with its 365 days, mirrored the solar year. The Tezocan, the sacred 260-day cycle, was linked to agriculture, human gestation, and spiritual significance. The two interlocked to form a larger 52-year calendar round, a sacred turning of the wheel. But the long calendar counting days from the mythical creation was even more astounding, capable of marking time over thousands of years. The Maya carved these dates onto stele and temple walls, commemorating not just battles and births, but moments of cosmic resonance. Time to them was not abstract. It was physical, spiritual, alive. It could be counted, spoken to, celebrated. The passage of days was not incidental, but meaningful. In this way, even the most ordinary person lived within a sacred chronology, their actions part of something much larger. And still, the Maya were not only philosophers or priests, they were engineers and artists. They developed one of the most advanced writing systems in the ancient world, comprised of hundreds of glyphs, each a subtle combination of logogram and syllabic sound. These glyphs recorded dynastic histories, astronomical calculations, and mythic stories. They were carved into stone, painted onto pottery, and written in codices, folding books made from bark paper, coated in lime to hold pigments that remain vivid even now. They built aqueducts and reservoirs. They terraced hillsides. They grew cacao, maize, squash, and beans in carefully planned systems. Their cities were vast and densely populated, often surrounded by satellite villages and linked by causeways. The jungle that now reclaims them was once kept at bay, not cut down completely, but managed, sculpted, tamed. But perhaps the most extraordinary achievement of the Maya is that they accomplished all of this without draft animals, without metal tools, and without wheeled transport. Their civilization was built through human will, precision, and the coordinated effort of thousands. Stones were hauled by hand, pyramids rose block by block, murals were painted using brushes made from animal hair, and vegetable dyes crushed by stone rollers. The Maya used obsidian and jade, not iron or bronze, yet crafted tools, blades, and ornaments of exquisite sharpness and beauty. They did not live in isolation. The Maya were part of a broader Mesoamerican world. They traded with the peoples of Teotihuacan to the north and maintained maritime networks along the coasts. They absorbed influences from neighboring cultures, yet always shaped these to fit their own cosmological vision. The result was a civilization both distinct and interconnected, intricate pattern of shared practices and unique innovations. Of course, not all was peace. The Maya world, like our own, was riven with conflict and ambition. City fought against city. Dynasties vied for dominance. Captives were taken not only for labor, but for ritual. Politics was performed not just with laws, but with spectacle. Kings were judged not merely on wisdom, but on omens, harvests, victories, and portents in the stars. Even so, the culture endured. When cities fell, others rose. When dynasties ended, new ones emerged. The people adapted, moved, and redefined their identity across centuries. By the time Europeans arrived in the 16th century, many of the great cities of the southern lowlands had already been abandoned, but the Maya people lived on. They still do, in towns and villages across Central America, keeping language, ritual, and memory alive. And yet, many stories remain hidden. The thick jungles of Chiapas, of Campeche, and the Guatemalan highlands still hold secrets. There are mounds beneath moss that once were pyramids. There are glyphs half swallowed by vines. There are cities, entire cities, waiting to be uncovered, layered with meaning, dense with the past. To know the Maya is to accept that the past is not fully past. Their calendar continues. Their language is still spoken. Their beliefs echo in modern rites, and their cities are not gone, but sleeping. As you rest in this understanding, let the weight of history soothe you not as a burden, but as a comfort. The Maya world was vast, rich, and carefully ordered. A world where the stars mattered, where every ritual had purpose, where memory was carved in stone, and days were counted like precious stones. Soon we'll continue our quiet walk into the rise and fall of the cities themselves. But for now, rest here among the trees. Let the incense drift. Let the drums grow distant. The jungle remembers everything. Let us begin again, slowly, with the image of a city, rising not from myth or legend, but from the soil itself. Imagine first the clearing of land. The jungle resists. Its vines, thick with memory, must be coaxed back. Earth is moved by hand, stone by stone. And then, from this labor, something emerges. The first small plaza, an altar, a dwelling, a place to meet the gods. Around it, structures bloom like petals. More homes, a ball court, terraced fields, causeways paved in white stone, and towering temples meant to scrape the sky. This is how a Maya city is born, not in a burst, but in a rhythm, slow, generational, ritualized. To understand how these cities rose, one must first understand their purpose. Maya cities were more than just places to live. They were living expressions of cosmic order. Their layout echoed the spiritual structure of the universe, the four cardinal directions, the sacred center, the the movements of the sun and stars. Each pyramid was a mountain, each plaza a stage upon which the sacred stories of the cosmos could be performed again and again, reaffirming order over chaos. Take, for instance, the city of Tickledeep in the Guatemalan lowlands, once hidden beneath thick rainforest, but now partially revealed, standing in solemn grandeur. At its height, Tikal was home to tens of thousands, its stepped pyramids towering above the canopy. Its rulers traced their lineages back for centuries, commemorating each generation with stone stele, their surfaces crowded with intricate glyphs and the solemn faces of long-dead kings. Each new construction project was more than architecture, it was political expression, religious reaffirmation, and a conversation with time. Tikal's growth was not isolated. Other great cities flourished alongside it. Calakmul to the north. To the south, these cities rose through ambition and ritual, through clever diplomacy and careful marriage, through conquest and performance. And all around them, smaller communities served as satellites, providing food, labor, and tribute. But nothing in Maya life was permanent. Just as cities rose, so too did they fall. And their fall was never sudden, never the story of one battle or one catastrophe. It was slower, it was quieter, a decline of rhythms, a failure of seasons, a silence that crept in year by year. The collapse of the southern lowland cities during the 8th and 9th centuries CE remains one of the most studied and debated topics in Mesoamerican archaeology. And yet, even now, there is no single answer, no singular moment of collapse, no obvious invader, no fiery ruin to mark the end. Instead, the evidence speaks of something more complex, a web of interrelated challenges, each fraying a different thread of the civilization. There is evidence of drought, prolonged periods without rain that would have devastated crops and strained reservoirs. The Maya relied heavily on their ability to trap and store water during the wet season, and when the rains failed, the consequences rippled outward. Food shortages followed, fields dried, populations grew hungry. And then there was the forest itself. The expansion of cities required constant supplies of timber, not only for construction, but for lime production, which was essential for making plaster. As demand grew, so did deforestation. The loss of tree cover likely altered local climates, reduced soil fertility, and increased erosion. The jungle, once managed and respected, was pushed too far. Social strain followed. As hardship increased, the power of kings began to weaken. The great rituals, once believed to maintain balance, seemed no longer to bring results. The people still danced, the priests still burned incense, but the rains did not return. The crops did not grow. Faith faltered. Rebellions may have flared not loudly, but in the quiet refusal to bring tribute, to build new temples, to carve new names into stone. Wars, too, played their part. The rivalry between Tikal and Calakmul lasted generations, with cities allying, switching sides, rising and falling in endless cycles of conflict. Victories were won, but often at the cost of stability. A captured king might be paraded through the enemy's city, sacrificed, and his name erased from history, but the people he ruled still needed food, still needed order. Warfare may have destabilized entire regions, making recovery from environmental stress more difficult. And slowly, the monumental heart of the southern cities began to fail. Temples were no longer maintained. Stele were no longer carved. The plazas grew quiet. People left not in panic, but in gradual retreat, They moved away from the ceremonial centers and back into smaller, more sustainable communities. The population declined, not to nothing, but to something more manageable, more scattered. Archaeologists refer to this as the classic Maya collapse, but, in truth, it was not a collapse in the sense of destruction. It was a shift, a rebalancing, a movement away from centralized kingdoms and back toward local rhythms. While the grandeur of cities like Tikal faded, Maya life continued in other forms, in other places. To the north, in the new powers, Razu Small, and later, these cities adopted many traditions from the classic period, but blended them with new influences and innovations. The architecture changed, the gods shifted, the rituals adapted, the people endured. Imagine now walking through one of the cities just before its decline. Perhaps you are in a city known for its artistry and deep learning. The ball court still echoes with the memory of games once played for ritual meaning, not sport. The hieroglyphic stairway, carved with over 1,800 glyphs, remains, partially intact. But there are signs of fading. A half-built temple, never completed. A stela base, prepared but never inscribed. A mural, its colors dulled. These are not the marks of catastrophe, but of neglect, of absence, of lives moving elsewhere. The forest returns, slowly but surely. Vines inch up temple walls, roots find cracks in stone. Birds nest where banners once flew. Insects colonize altars. The world softens these places, makes them quiet again. The jungle does not destroy it, embraces, reclaims, protects. By the time European chroniclers arrived in the 16th century, many Maya cities were already abandoned, and yet they were not forgotten, not by the descendants of those who had once lived there. In nearby villages, stories remained. Myths spoke of cities hidden in the jungle, guarded by spirits, watched over by snakes of stone and fire. The people still held rituals, still remembered names, even if the great plazas were now filled with roots and silence. And so, when early explorers stumbled upon these ruins, centuries later, overgrown, silent, profound, they were not discovering them for the first time. They were entering a space long remembered in another way. A sacred landscape layered with memory, both tangible and whispered. Today, we look back not only to marvel, but to learn. The rise of Maya cities teaches us about resilience, organization, and vision. Their decline reminds us of fragility, of how even the greatest systems must remain in balance with nature, with belief, with the cycles of the world. But this is not the end of the story. As we move forward, we will begin to explore the myths that lingereth, the whispered legends of lost cities still untouched by archaeologists, of chambers beneath temples, of treasures not measured in gold but in knowledge. Let us now leave the fading plazas behind and follow the overgrown paths into mystery. The forest grows thicker, but just ahead, the first glyph-covered stone comes into view. There is something about the jungle that invites secrets. The way the vines twist overhead, closing out the sun, the hush of leaves in the wind, the slow drip of water from moss-covered stone. It feels like a place holding its breath, waiting, and perhaps it always has been. For even after the Maya cities fell into quiet disrepair, they did not fade from memory. The jungle may have cloaked their walls and swallowed their steps, but their stories endured. You see, the Maya did not disappear. Their descendants continued to live in the surrounding lands, speaking the same languages, weaving the same patterns, and whispering the same stories beneath starlit skies. In these stories, the ancient cities were not ruins. They were enchanted, guarded, cursed, blessed, sometimes invisible to those who weren't meant to see them, sometimes inhabited not by people, but by spirits of stone, animals with human eyes, or gods waiting in silence. One such story told by the Yucatec Maya is of a hidden city deep within the forest, where the temples shine like gold and the priests still perform their rituals, unaware that centuries have passed. This city, it is said, only reveals itself to those who are pure of heart or lost beyond hope. It appears as a shimmer through the trees, a melody heard through the undergrowth. But if you follow it, it disappears, leaving only mossy ground and the call of distant howler monkeys behind. Other tales speak of great kings who never died, but merely sleep beneath their temples, waiting for a time when they are needed again. Their tombs, hidden beneath pyramid floors, are said to be sealed with glyphs of such power that no mortal hand dares to break them. When the end of the world comes or the beginning of a new one, they will rise, it is said, and restore the order of time. And then there are stories of treasure not the gold sought by Spanish conquistadors, but something older, deeper. Knowledge, codices written in the old hand, buried in caves or sealed in hidden rooms. These books, it is said, hold the secrets of the stars, the names of forgotten gods, the histories of cities not yet rediscovered. One such codex is rumored to lie beneath the city of Ichmal, guarded by jaguars and warded by stone serpents that come to life when touched by moonlight. These tales, though wrapped in fantasy, reflect something deeply true, that the Maya past was never entirely lost. Even as temples crumbled, memory remained. When archaeologists first began to study Maya ruins in the 19th century, they did not uncover something unknown. They stepped into a world already steeped in story. Many of the local guides who led them through the jungle were descendants of the builders. They knew the sites by other names passed down through generations. They knew which temples were dangerous to climb, which plazas echoed strangely, which caves were best left untouched. The legend of El Mirador, for instance, city buried so deep in jungle that only its tallest pyramid, La Danta, rises above the canopy like the peak of a green-covered mountain, has long been a subject of local myth. Long before it was mapped by drones or photographed from helicopters, it was known to the nearby Keksi Maya, who spoke of it as a place watched over by forest spirits, a place with walls that breathe and paths that twist when followed. And then there is the mystery of Zul, a name that in Yucatec means end or termination. In ancient texts and modern rumors alike, the name appears associated with a city that stood at the edge of the known Maya world. Some say it was the final city to fall, the last to see its temple fires go dark. Others believe it never fell at all, but simply vanished, taken whole into the earth, its people untouched by time. The search for Zul has led many explorers into the jungle, but none have returned with more than fragments, carvings, with partial names, broken ceramics, hints of a place just beyond reach. There is also the enduring legend of the White Roads, the Sakbibstone causeways, built by the Maya that stretch, in some cases, for miles through the forest. Some believe that if you follow them long enough, in the right season, with the right offerings in hand, they will lead you not just to another city, but to a city not marked on any map, a city that lies in the folds of time. These roads are real. Archaeologists have uncovered many, their white plaster still gleaming under centuries of moss. But whether they lead to forgotten cities or simply to empty plazas is a question that continues to haunt the imagination. And then there is the jungle itself, not merely a backdrop, but a living force in Maya mythology. The Maya understood the forest to be sacred. its trees, animals, and winds were not inanimate. They were alive with meaning. Ceiba trees, with their towering trunks and buttress roots, were seen as world trees linking the heavens, the earth, and the underworld. The forest was both danger and sanctuary, chaos and order. Within its depths, stories could be born and preserved. The Maya also spoke of cenotes, natural sinkholes that connect to underground rivers as portals to Xibalba, the Maya underworld. Some cities, were built around these cenotes. Offerings were made into their depths, ceramics, precious stones, even human remains to communicate with the gods who dwelled below. And yet, these sacred wells are more than sites of worship. They are also echoes of a cosmology that placed the hidden, the subterranean, at the center of meaning. The lost city, then, is not just buried in soil, it is buried in significance. Imagine now a narrow trail, nearly overgrown. You follow it beneath a canopy of leaves so dense that the air turns cool, damp, and dim. A guide ahead of you stops, touches a stone half buried in the earth, and brushes away the moss to reveal a glyphant but unmistakable, a name, a date, a city once thought to be myth. The guide nods. We call this place Yax. It means first sorcerer. No map records it. No journal describes it. But to the people who live nearby, it has always been there, part of their landscape, their imagination, their inheritance. The stories are not distractions from history. They are part of it. Legends guide research. Myths frame discovery. And even as archaeologists deploy satellite imagery and ground-penetrating radar, they still listen carefully to the words of elders, to the stories told in kitchens and forest clearings, because sometimes the legends are truer than we expect. Sometimes a tale of a sleeping city leads to a pyramid long hidden. The jungle holds many such dreams. And so, as we drift further into this world of half-remembered names and vine-covered stones, let the stories wash over you. Let them curl around your thoughts like incense in the air. The lost cities are out there, not just beneath the earth, but beneath memory. In the next part, we will walk alongside those who sought to find these forgotten places, not in myths alone, but through maps, machetes, and moments of rediscovery. But for now, rest in the warmth of wonder. Somewhere beyond the next ridge, a temple waits. Let us now return to the forest, not as a Maya priest or villager, but as a quiet observer and explorer of a different kind. The year is not 800 CE, but perhaps 1839. The sun is higher overhead. The tools are newer, but still simple. The jungle remains, ever unyielding, thick, tangled, humming with unseen life. You are not the first to walk this path, but you carry with you the desire to see what lies beneath centuries of green. The rediscovery of the lost Maya cities was not an event, but a process, a gradual awakening that took place over decades, perhaps even centuries. Locals, of course, had always known of these ruins. They were not hidden to everyone, but to the outside world, they were mysteries yet to be acknowledged. It was only when explorers, artists, and eventually archaeologists began to listen and to look closely that the jungle began, ever so reluctantly, to give up its grip. One of the earliest known Western visitors to a major Maya site was the Spanish conquistador himself, who passed near the great city of Yaxchilan in 1525 during his march to Honduras. He noted ruined structures, stone walls, but he did not understand what they meant. To him, these were curiosities, perhaps signs of an ancient empire, perhaps merely the remnants of abandoned villages. the depth of what he passed by would not be understood for centuries. It was not until the 19th century that the world outside Mesoamerica truly began to grasp the scope of what had been lost, stand what might be found again. John Lloyd Stevens, an American diplomat and writer, along with his illustrator companion, Frederick Catherwood, traveled through the and into the Guatemalan highlands in the 1830s and 1840s. What they saw astonished them. Enormous stone temples, carved lintels, intricate stucco facades, and entire cities, swallowed by it is so classic. Pains, by Hander reproduced in their published works Capture and Grandeur of Myadigans and Abranagrants to a Tessiant, Crandamy play, and with and with that, I hear you and with a kimba, and it die with a tabia, who did you, heard it's you have but with it, with a new wood, but with by dead if would I for the met up with, but if there was to body you, night the pain, you but the editant, it, what if it was good what I did as if I was that it wasn't that it must The two men visited Palenque Uxmal and many others, documenting walls coated in glyphs no one could yet read, stairways worn smooth by forgotten feet, and pyramids that seemed to rise naturally out of the hills, crowned by trees. Imagine now walking behind them. The light filters through the canopy in golden shafts. Catherwood, covered in sweat, crouches beside a steeler, sketching a jaguar-faced god wrapped in feathers. Stevens, notebook in hand, quietly contemplates the scale of the temple rising before him. Their footsteps disturb insects and birds, but not the structures. These stones are used to waiting. Their books, specially incidents of travel in Central America, Chiapas and Yucatan, brought the Maya back into the public eye. For many readers in Europe and the United States, this was their first encounter with a sophisticated civilization that had flourished far from the influence of Greece, Rome, or Egypt, and yet the sense of mystery remained. The Maya script was unreadable, the calendar misunderstood. The cities were known, but only as shells without names, voices, or context. And so, the slow work began. Over the following decades, expeditions continued, sometimes with academic rigor, other times driven by treasure-seeking or national pride. The French, the British, the Germans sent researchers and adventurers into the thick forests of Mesoamerica. Some recorded, some looted, some dug carefully, others simply took. Temples were measured, mapped, cleared. Trees were cut back to reveal courtyards. Inscriptions were photographed, artifacts removed, but still, the full picture remained elusive. Without the ability to read the glyphs, much of the Maya world was interpreted through guesswork shaped by European biases, assumptions, and the desire to fit these ruins into familiar narratives of kings, battles, and decline. Only in the 20th century did the real decoding begin. The breakthrough came not from a single genius, but from the efforts of many working slowly, patiently, often over lifetimes. Tatiana Proskoryakov, a Russian-American scholar, revolutionized Maya studies when she demonstrated that the glyphs did not only record ritual or astronomical data, as once believed, but also dynastic history. Births, accessions, deaths, battles. The names carved into the stele were not metaphors or gods, they were real people. Kings, queens, heirs, conquerors. Suddenly, The Maya cities had voices. In the 1950s and 60s, scholars like Yuri, a Soviet linguist who studied photographs of Maya codices from afar, began to unravel the phonetic aspects of the script. Each glyph was not just a symbol, but a sound, a piece of spoken language preserved in stone. What followed was a steady cascade of understanding. The walls began to speak. Today, archaeologists can read large portions of Maya texts. They can reconstruct dynasties, track alliances, understand rivalries. Cities once known only by Spanish names, Bonampak, Pedras, Negros, were restored to their Maya names. Usages, Yaxchilan, Sac-Si. Each name returned was an act of memoria, whisper from beneath centuries of silence. But even now, many cities remain unknown. Some are marked only by clusters of mounds deep in the jungle. Others are visible from the sky, dark lines beneath the canopy, spotted by LiDAR technology, which uses lasers to peel away the forest and reveal structures hidden for centuries. In recent years, this technology has transformed our understanding of the Maya world. What once seemed like isolated cities now appear as dense networks, roads, reservoirs, terraces connecting entire regions in ways previously unimaginable. In 2018, LiDAR revealed over 60,000 previously unknown structures in the area surrounding Tikal alone: fortifications, causeways, homes, fields. The cities were not merely ceremonial, they were vast, living landscapes. The Maya, we now understand, were not scattered forest dwellers. They were builders of metropolises, stewards of complex infrastructure, managers of land, water, and sky. And yet, for all this technology, discovery still begins with the quiet walk, the brush of vine against fabric, the pause beside a carved stone, the moment when sunlight catches an edge that should not be there: stair, a platform, a wall. Even now, archaeologists walk slowly, machete in hand, listening for the signs. The forest does not give its secrets easily, but it does give them. Imagine you are part of such an expedition today. The morning is still. The insects hum. You move carefully, eyes trained to distinguish root from rubble. Suddenly, you see a pattern, a line too straight to be natural. You kneel, brush the soil aside. A glyph emerges, faint, eroded, but unmistakable. You call softly to the others. No one rushes. They move slowly, reverently. Around you, the jungle waits, as if watching. This is how cities are found. Not in drama, but in detail. Not in gold, but in glyphs. Not by conquering the forest, but by listening to it. And when the city is found, there is no celebration, only silence. Only the careful unfolding of meaning, stone by stone, story by story. And always more questions than answers. Because every discovery opens a dozen doors. And some are still locked. Now that we've uncovered the path, and the city begins to emerge through layers of earth and imagination, let us slow our steps once more. The sounds of the jungle soften as we approach the stillness of the ruins. Vines droop like curtains. A spiderweb glistens in the shade of a moss-covered wall. And just ahead, as the green parts, the layout of the lost city begins to unfold. Not in a straight line, not in the neat grids of modern design, but in a rhythm of flow, sacred arrangement, where each structure speaks to the others, and the city itself becomes a living map of belief. The Maya were not random in their construction. Cities were laid out with deep intentionality. The location of temples, palaces, altars, and causeways all reflected not just practicality, but cosmology. To walk through a Maya city was to move through meaning. Every turn was symbolic. Every elevation, every stair, every shadow at solstice was part of a language carved into space itself. The city was built to reflect the Maya understanding of the universe, ordered, tiered, directional, three realms: the heavens above, the earthly plane, and the watery, shadowed underworld known as Xibalba. These were not just metaphysical ideas, but physical ones. Buildings were constructed to represent them, link them, make them walkable. The pyramid, perhaps the most iconic structure, was not merely a monument, but a sacred bridge of vertical axis connecting the three worlds. Imagine now approaching one of these pyramids. It does not rise abruptly, but gradually asserts itself above the jungle floor. Its sides are steep, but not sheer. The steps are narrow and uneven, designed to slow your ascent, to humble your approach. At the top, a temple faces the rising sun. On certain days of the year, solstices, equinoxes, calendar milestones, the light pours in with perfect precision, illuminating glyphs or statues inside. The building itself becomes a calendar, a clock, a ritual instrument. These temples, like the one atop the pyramid known as El Castillo Inn, were not merely homes to gods. They were performances in stone. On the equinox, a shadow forms along the northern stair, shaped like a serpent's, slithering downward in the setting sun, aligning with the carved head of Kukulkan, the feathered serpent deity. No accident, no trick of light. It is architecture as ceremony. Below the pyramid, vast plazas stretch outward. These open spaces served as the heart of civic life. They were where the people gathered, not just for ceremony, but for announcements, judgments, games, festivals. The plazas were framed by temples, altars, and palaces, forming a visual and spiritual center. The ruler would appear on high platforms, their voice carrying across the stones. In these moments, the boundaries between ruler and god, subject and sky, seemed to dissolve. Surrounding the central plazas were the palatial residences. These were not always as tall as the temples, but they were sprawling, complex, and finely constructed. Their rooms were arranged around courtyards, allowing air and light to filter inward. The interiors were painted, now faded, with scenes of courtly life, battle victories, and divine myths. Many rooms had benches for sleeping, altars for private offerings, and niches for storing ceremonial items. Even in their domestic spaces, the elite lived within ritual. And farther still, branching out from the center like arteries, were the sakbebda white roads, made of crushed limestone and plaster. These elevated causeways connected temples to temples, cities to villages. Some were short and ceremonial. Others extended for miles through the jungle, linking cities separated by rivers and hills. To walk upon one is to follow the footsteps of ancient pilgrims, traders, nobles, and messengers. Sometimes the roads led to ball courts, sunken rectangles framed by sloped stone walls, where the Maya played the Mesoamerican ball game. But again, this was not sport in the modern sense. It was ritual, a reenactment of myth. The movement of the ball between sides mirrored the battle between light and darkness, life and death. In some versions of the myth, the winners were honored. In others, they were sacrificed. The ambiguity remains, but the court was always sacred, a space between worlds. Beyond the ceremonial center, the city continued in waves. Residential zones spread outward. Homes of commoners were made of perishable materials: wood, thatch, clay, though often built atop low stone platforms. These zones included kitchens, gardens, workshops. Life here was quieter, simpler, but still tied to the rhythms of the city. Offerings were still made, ancestors remembered, calendars marked. The everyday and the sacred were not far apart. Then came the boundaries fortified, in some cases, natural in others. Some cities were surrounded by walls, not always for war, but for marking space. Some were hemmed in by rivers, others by ridgelines, and beyond that, fields, forests, reservoirs. The Maya were adept at water management. In cities like Tikal, they constructed large artificial reservoirs lined with plaster, using sedimentation and filtration systems to ensure clean water through the dry season. They shaped the land to collect what the sky provided. In recent years, archaeologists, using LiDAR, have revealed the full extent of these urban landscapes. What seemed like isolated ceremonial centers were actually dense and interconnected. Terraces for agriculture, channels for drainage, hidden foundations, entire suburbs buried beneath the trees. The Maya did not build small villages, they built cities. Cities that pulsed with purpose, designed not just for living, but for aligning human life with the divine. And yet, within all this structure, there was room for beauty. Decorative elements adorned every surface. Masks of gods flanked staircases. Columns were carved with serpents. Facades bore the images of kings merging with deities, their headdresses billowing with feathers and symbolism. Murals depicted rituals, myths, wars, games. Everywhere, the city told a story, and sometimes that story was folded inward into hidden rooms, buried offerings, sealed passages. Within the foundations of temples, caches of jade, obsidian, and shell were placed with care. Each object had meaning, each arrangement part of a larger narrative. To build was to offer, to shape stone was to shape fate. Even the acoustics of the city were intentional. The open plazas allowed voices to carry. The pyramids amplified echoes. The ball courts channeled sound. In some cities, a clap in front of the temple produces a sound like a bird's call-in illusion, engineered through design. The city was not just seen and walked, it was heard. And so we begin to understand. The lost Maya city was not a place in ruin, but a place in resonance. A place where architecture and astronomy, myth and measurement, ritual and routine all met. It was a city of purpose, of story, of silence now, but not then. Let yourself walk its paths a little longer. Stand beneath a lintel carved with glyphs, still faint beneath moss. Trace your hand along the rough edge of a step worn by feet long gone. Listen for the way the wind moves through the corridors, how the past seems to rustle through leaves like a memory being stirred. These stones remember everything, and in their memory, a world unfolds, not chaotic, but composed. In our next part, we'll step beyond the stones and look toward the people who lived here, artists and farmers, the priests and children whose lives gave breath to these temples. But for now, stay here a moment longer. The city isn't gone. It is merely waiting. Now that we've wandered through the skeletal structure of this vanished city, its plazas, its pyramids, its causeways, veined like roots across the land, let us pause and look closer, not at the buildings now, but at the lives that once flowed through them. The people who built these stones with bare hands, who climbed the temples with offerings pressed to their chests, who whispered prayers into the smoky breath of incense as the stars wheeled overhead. Imagine yourself sitting at the edge of a shaded courtyard in the late afternoon. The air is warm, thick with the scent of crushed herbs and burning copal. From within the temple above, a low, rhythmic chanting drifts outward, measured, steady, like the soft beat of a drum heard through layers of time. A procession is forming nearby. Dancers adorned in bright feathers, faces painted with red ochre and charcoal, their movements slow and deliberate. In their hands they carry rattles, flutes, folded cloth, carved tokens of jade. These are not performances for spectacle. They are actions of belief, meant to keep the world in balance. In this city, like others throughout the Maya world, society was structured, but not rigid. Roles were defined, yet interwoven through ritual and responsibility. At the top stood the Kayuul Ajah, or Holy Lord, the Divine King. He was not simply a ruler, but a sacred intermediary, one whose very blood was believed to nourish the gods. His birth, his accession, his rituals, each was recorded in glyphs set in stone, woven into murals, sung by scribes. To be king was to be the city embodied. Beside him stood the nobility, priests, scribes, generals, administrators, who governed the rhythms of the city's life. Some were astronomers, watching the skies from small observatories, recording the movements of Venus and the sun with uncanny precision. Others were calendar keepers, managing the complex interplay of the Tizocan and the Hob, and preparing the rituals required when their cycles aligned. Every day had meaning, every number and name a purpose. To walk through life was to walk through time itself. Then there were the artisans, skilled workers, who carved stone, shaped clay, painted walls, and wove brilliant textiles. Their hands created the world we now uncover. They chiseled stories into steely, molded incense burners with swirling deities, applied colors made from crushed insects and minerals. Their art was not decoration, it was devotion. Even the most practical objects, a bowl, a comb, a spindle, could carry sacred symbolism, transforming the mundane into the ceremonial. Further still lived the commoners, the majority, farmers, laborers, porters, fisherfolk. Their lives, though less recorded in stone, were no less meaningful. Each morning they tended to maize, the sacred grain. Maize was not just food, it was the stuff of creation. According to Maya mythology, humanity was formed from ground corn mixed with water and the breath of the gods. To plant, to harvest, to grind, to cook, these were not chores, but acts of cosmic continuity. The sound of grinding stones in the early dawn, the pat-pat of fresh tortillas on a clay griddle, the smoke rising gently into the morning. This was the rhythm of Maya survival. Children played in shaded courtyards, their games echoing the rituals of adults. Some practiced throwing balls through miniature hoops, imitating the sacred ball game. Others chased one another with woven dolls or climbed the roots of ceiba trees while mimicking the howls of distant monkeys. As they grew older, their roles emerged. Girls learned to weave, to prepare food, to tend gardens of squash, beans, chili, and amaranth. Boys were taught to hunt, to fish, to assist in the fields, or, if born to scribes or priests, to begin learning glyphs scratched into bark paper codices. Among these lives pulsed a current of ritual and ever-present awareness that the world was not only seen, but inhabited by forces both benevolent and volatile. The gods were everywhere, and they required attention. Offerings were made daily, a drop of blood from the tongue or ear, a sprinkle of maize flour into the fire, a whisper toward a carved mask on the wall. These were not dramatic acts, but quiet agreements sustained across generations. Larger ceremonies took place during calendar transitions, eclipses, the end of one cycle, and the birth of another. During these events, priests climbed temple steps with torches and conch shell trumpets. calling upon the gods to accept their gifts and preserve balance in the cosmos. Bloodletting, a key element of Maya ritual, was understood as a sacred act, not a punishment. Rulers, nobles, even queens performed it, drawing their own blood in symbolic offerings. The process was deeply ritualized, often involving stingray, spines, or obsidian blades, with the blood dripped onto bark cloth, then burned. The smoke was believed to carry messages to the godzor, to the ancestors. The gods, in turn, were expected to respond with rain, harvest, safety, fertility. It was not sacrifice in the way we might imagine, but exchange, an ancient economy of life and reciprocity. In the city, temples dedicated to specific deities dotted the landscape. There was Chak, the god of rain, often shown with curled fangs and serpentine features. His favor was essential, especially in dry seasons. Etched, goddess of fertility, weaving, and medicine, was revered by women, midwives, and healers. Kanich, a Jiao, the sun god, was celebrated at dawn as the first light touched the temple tips. Even death gods, like Puch, had their altars, not feared but respected, for death was not an ending, but a transformation. The people moved through these layers of meaning, like breath through lungs. Markets opened at dawn with traders selling salt, cacao, obsidian, and feathers. Healers prepared poultices of crushed leaves and tree bark. Midwives whispered prayers before births. Warriors adorned in jaguar pelts trained in the outskirts. Couriers ran along Sakbib, carrying messages wrapped in cloth and bound with knots. And always the calendar turned its gears, immense and invisible, clicking forward with each sunrise. Even funerary practices held depth and precision. The dead were often buried beneath homes or near temples, wrapped in cloth, accompanied by items they would need in the afterlife. Carved jade beads, pots of food, tools. Sometimes their skulls were reshaped in youth, flattened or elongated as a sign of status. Infants, too, were buried close-ended, even in death. Ancestors were not forgotten. Their names were spoken in rituals, their presence invited during feast days. They remained part of the family, the city, the cycle. The more we study these rituals, the more it becomes clear that the Maya lived not in a secular world with moments of religion, but in a sacred world where all moments were infused with meaning. The city was not separate from the gods. It was a reflection of them, an offering to them, a conversation with them. And as you walk slowly through these remembered lives, past the soot marks on altar stones, past the footprints worn into thresholds, past the remnants of meals cooked and shared, you begin to feel the city not just as ruins, but as memory. These people are gone, yes, but their rituals echo still. Even now, their descendants return to these sites, not as tourists, but as pilgrims. They bring offerings, light candles, speak prayers in Maya. The rituals continue, softly, under modern sky. In the next chapter, we will explore why this city, so alive, so vibrant, so precise, came to be abandoned. What forces, seen and unseen, brought silence to its plazas. But for now, linger here. Let the smoke curl upward. Let the voices of past lives whisper at the edge of thought. This city lived, and in these stones it still breathes. The end of a city is rarely loud. It does not come all at once, with fire and screams and falling towers. More often, it drifts in slowly, quiet as a change in the wind, subtle as the drying of a stream, gentle as the fading of a chant. One day, the market is bustling. The next, it is merely quieter than usual. A few weeks pass, and the healer's chants grow less frequent. Soon, the temple fires are harder to keep lit. The jungle grows bolder. And then, one morning, there are more birds than voices in the plaza. So it was, it seems, with many of the great Maya cities. In the city we've been imagining lost to time, tangled in vines, the decline did not begin with conquest, or fire, or an enemy from across the sea. It began within, a slow unraveling. The reasons were many, layered, and not entirely understood. But the signs are etched in the soil, written in tree rings, buried in pollen, remembered in crumbling stairways that led to empty altars. The late classic period, from roughly 600 to 900 CE, was a time of brilliance. The cities flourished, new pyramids rose, stelae were carved in celebration of kings and battles and calendar turns. The ball courts echoed with footsteps. The maize was plentiful, and yet, beneath this grandeur, pressures mounted. One of the most significant culprits, it seems, was environmental stress. The Maya world depended on rainfall. There were no vast rivers like the Nile or the Tigris to irrigate crops year-round. Instead, water was gathered in cisterns, channeled from seasonal streams, and stored in artificial reservoirs. This system worked beautifully until it didn't. Paleoclimatologists have studied sediment cores from lake beds and found evidence of prolonged droughts beginning in the 9th century. The rains, once rhythmic and generous, began to falter, first for a season, then for several, then for years. Crops failed, reservoirs dried, fields cracked under the sun. Without reliable maize, famine set in not abruptly, but increasingly. Families ate their stores, then their seeds, then their livestock. They searched the forest for roots and fruits, but it was never enough. Hunger makes everything more difficult. Rule, peace. At the same time, the cities grew crowded. Population estimates suggest that in the late Classic, some Maya cities may have reached densities of 500 to 1,000 people per square kilometer, higher than modern urban averages. With such numbers came pressure on the land. Deforestation increased to make way for new fields. The fertile topsoil eroded. The very canopy that once regulated water cycles and protected the earth was stripped away, accelerating the crisis. And as always, when resources grow scarce, tensions rise. Warfare between city-states became more frequent and more desperate. Glyphs from this period tell of battles, of captives taken, of kings vanquished or ritually humiliated. Fortifications were hastily added to once open cities. Temples became more closed. Alliances shifted rapidly. Some rulers began to commission fewer monuments, their reigns cut short by conflict or rebellion. Others turned increasingly to ritual bloodletting, animal sacrifice, and symbolic warfare in a bid to restore balance, or at least the illusion of it. Yet the gods remained silent. The priest ascends the steps, his robes faded, his voice hoarse. He offers smoke and prayer to the rain god Chak, whose face is carved with sorrow on the temple wall. But the clouds do not come. The reservoir below is dry. The maize stored in ceramic bins is gone. A child coughs in the crowd. A mother presses her hand to his forehead. The wind carries dust where it once carried the scent of tortillas. Still, they hope. Still, they remember the times when the rituals worked. Still, they climb the pyramid steps. But slowly, surely, the ceremonies lose their power. The city begins to fracture. Nobles lose followers. Farmers abandon their fields. The rulers' names stop appearing on stelae. The painters cease painting. The masons find fewer stones to shape. And then, one by one, the structures go untended. Roofs collapse, altars crack, jungle roots begin to creep between the stones. Not all cities fell at once. The collapse was not universal. Some regions fared better than others. In the northern cities like Uzmal, and continued to thrive for centuries longer. But in the central lowlands places like Tikal, and perhaps the very city we've been imagining, the unraveling could not be stopped. Even then, it wasn't abandonment in the way we think. People did not all flee overnight. They lingered, they adapted. Some moved to smaller settlements nearby. Others stayed and lived among the ruins, tending small plots, practicing quiet rituals, waiting for the rains to return. The collapse was not extinction, it was transformation. The culture did not disappear. The Maya people did not vanish, but the city, the great, humming, structured, sacred city, grew still. Perhaps one of the last rituals ever performed there was done in solitude. A priest, now old and alone, climbs the pyramid one last time. The steps are cracked, the vines thick. He lights a final bowl of copal resin and watches the smoke curl upward. He speaks the name of the city, of the gods, of the king who ruled when the sun still shone. He listens for an answer, but hears only the wind. Then he descends, and the city exhales its last breath. What follows is silence, and then the slow return of the jungle. The roots dig deeper, the branches spread, stones shift, leaves fall endlessly into the open courtyards. And year by year, the city is embraced by green, but the memory never vanishes. It is kept in stories, in the names passed down through generations, in the shape of a hill that once was a temple, in the way a path through the forest still curves gently toward an ancient plaza. In the next part, we will explore what came after the legacy of this city, the threads of knowledge and beauty it left behind, and how it shaped the future long after its own stones were covered by moss and time. But for now, let us pause here in the quiet aftermath. There is peace in this stillness, a kind of rest. The city, once filled with voices, now dreams. Even after the footsteps faded and the vines grew bold, the lost city did not truly vanish. Its temples no longer smoked with incense, and its plazas no longer pulsed with the songs of festival, but something endured, subtle, persistent, and soft as the wind weaving through branches. A legacy, a memory that did not live in ruins alone, but in language, in knowledge, in the everyday acts of people who had not forgotten. For the Maya people, the city's fall was not the end of their world. The stone palaces were lost. Yes, the kings' names grew faint. But the deeper currents of their civilization, the understanding of time, the reverence for maize, the names of the stars and rains, and sacred trees flowed onward, passed down from parent to child, like a careful whisper across generations. The Maya never disappeared. To this day, millions of Maya people live across Mesoamerica, speaking their ancestral languages, tending maize fields, weaving with ancient patterns, and marking the sacred days, on calendars still rooted in the long count systems their ancestors devised to saw with Sibyl is beprisse, but to be in, to win. And if I so be love but to cut up you above but if I put you at the to you if I was just about to you to you I am I God who I have I will you by so it was you if thou were die be they carry the memory of cities like the one we've explored, not as myth, but as inheritance. And so, the legacy of the lost city begins not with stone, but with survival. It also lives in ideas, the mathematical, astronomical, and architectural achievements that the ancient Maya refined over centuries. Long before European astronomers turned their eyes to the heavens, the Maya had charted the cycles of Venus, predicted eclipses, and calculated solar years with astonishing precision. Their observatories, like the circular structure known as El Caracol, were aligned to celestial events with exacting care. This city-hour, quiet, vine-cloaked city likely had its own skywatchers, priests who measured the horizon with sticks and cords, who read the shadows cast by pyramids, who understood that the stars were not merely lights, but signs beacons, marking time, destiny, and the will of the gods. These understandings were carved into stone and painted into codices, their knowledge both sacred and scientific. In mathematics, the Maya legacy is equally profound. They developed a positional number system, including the concept of zero, mathematical innovation that appeared in only a few ancient cultures. With this, they could record vast calendar cycles, perform complex calculations, and maintain intricate systems of tribute, planting schedules, and ritual dates. The very glyphs etched into stele were not merely decorative, they were data, encoded with meaning, precision, and rhythm. Their calendar system remains one of the most sophisticated in the pre-modern world. It wove together three main cycles: the 260-day Dazokan, the 365-day Hop, and the immense long count, which could track time across thousands of years. Each day had a name, a number, a deity, a destiny. To be born on a certain day was to be woven into a particular thread of fate. Priests consulted these cycles to guide planting, predict illness, name children, and interpret omens. And even now, in Maya communities, this calendar still moves. The sacred daykeepers, etched, still count the days using shells, seeds, and memory. They still light fires at crossroads and high places, offering prayers to the gods of time. The legacy of the calendar is not just numbers on paper, but time as breath, as cycle, as sacred promise. Then there is art, the legacy of vision. The murals found in cities like Bonampak, the painted ceramics of unknown workshops, the glyphs that adorn the very bones of rulers all speak to a visual language rich with metaphor and complexity. The Maya could convey history, myth, genealogy, and theology through images dense with symbolism. Feathered serpents, blooming cacao pods, burning hearts, ancestor spirits rising from jaws of the earth, each motif, a word, a concept, a sentence. Even in textiles today, these patterns persist. In the hooples worn by Maya women, the woven designs often mirror the cosmos diamonds representing the four corners of the earth, zigzags for rivers or lightning, stepped fretwork echoing the pyramids of the old cities. In every thread, the old stories remain, told not through stone, but through cloth. Beyond the borders of the Maya world, the lost city's legacy expanded quietly through discovery and scholarship. As archaeologists began to translate the glyphs, to understand the calendar, to reconstruct the meaning of temples and altars, the ancient Maya began to be seen not as a mysterious people who vanished, but as a sophisticated civilization with deep intellectual traditions. This recognition grew slowly but meaningfully, reshaping global understanding of the Americas before European contact. Even in literature, architecture, and philosophy, traces of Maya thought have seeped outward. Writers have drawn inspiration from the haunting beauty of abandoned cities. Architects have studied the proportions and alignments of Maya temples. Historians have admired the complexity of their dynastic records and the moral ambiguity of their myths, where gods are not merely good or evil, but dual, balanced, and cyclical. And then, of course, there is the stone, the city's physical legacy. Its architecture, inscriptions, and ceremonial layout has influenced generations of builders, archaeologists, and artists. The pyramids themselves, though often overgrown and fractured, stand as timeless reminders of a people who aligned their structures not just to the land, but to the heavens. Their staircases climb toward the sunrise. Their doorways frame the stars. Their plazas remember the echo of thousands gathered in silence. Perhaps the most poetic part of this legacy is the silence itself. For centuries, the city slept beneath the canopy. Its temples were trees, its palaces the dens of jaguars, and yet it endured. Unlike many modern things built for speed and spectacle, the city's stones were placed with patience. They were designed not to dazzle, but to last, not to impress, but to express. The Maya built not for a decade or even a generation, but for eternity. And in a way, they succeeded. Even now, as you lie back and let the imagined city drift behind your closed eyes, you carry a piece of its legacy. You have walked its causeways, climbed its steps, listened to the voices of its people, felt the press of time on your skin. That, too, is part of the inheritance, to remember. In the next chapter, we will step further beyond the ruins into the mysteries that still linger, the riddles still wrapped in stone and shadow. We will look to the chambers not yet opened, the symbols not yet understood, the echoes that still stir within the forest's breath. But for now, let yourself rest in this knowledge. The city is not gone, it simply changed shape. It became language, calendar, art, memory. It became tomorrow. Even after centuries of careful study, the lost city still holds its secrets close, like a gentle breath held beneath a canopy of leaves. These are not mysteries of sudden shock or dramatic revelation, but quiet enigmas etched in stone, folded into the patterns of vines, lingering in the silence of abandoned rooms. They invite us to slow down, to listen carefully, and to accept that not all knowledge reveals itself at once. Imagine yourself stepping softly along a narrow, leaf-strewn path, weaving through the dense jungle. The air around you is thick with the scent of damp earth, moss, and the faint, sweet aroma of wild orchids hidden in the shadows. Sunlight filters down in slow, dappled patterns, brushing your skin with muted warmth. Above, the canopy sways gently, the leaves whispering secrets to the passing breeze. In the distance, the haunting call of a toucan echoes, as though answering the city's silent questions. Around you, stones emerge from the earth worn by centuries of rain and root marking the outlines of structures, both familiar and puzzling. Here, a pyramid steps toward the sky with the precision of a cosmic calendar. There, an altar stands silent, covered in moss, its glyphs blurred and softened like faded memories. Yet, scattered among these, are buildings whose purpose continues to elude the careful gaze of archaeologists. These enigmatic spaces provoke questions as much as they yield answers. Some are long, narrow platforms with no clear functional evidence of ritual artifacts or domestic life. Others possess stairways that ascend only part way, abruptly ending in walls or thick foliage. A few chambers contain carefully arranged benches, niches, or stone basins, but their exact meaning remains lost in time's quiet embrace. Were these places of initiation reserved for secret rites? Observatories aligned with hidden celestial events, meeting halls for councils whose debates vanished with their voices? We do not know. The silence here is deep and patient. Among the city's stone faces, glyphs carved into monuments, stele and pottery offer glimpses of history and myth. Through decades of painstaking work, many glyphs have been deciphered, revealing royal lineages, calendar dates, conquests, and sacred ceremonies. Yet scattered among them are symbols that resist understanding. These remain as puzzles, their meanings locked in curves and lines that brush the edge of comprehension but slip away like smoke. It is tempting to imagine what these undeciphered glyphs might mean. Perhaps they encode forgotten rituals, secret messages between priests, or stories from voices lost long ago. They remind us that history is layered and partial, that the past speaks in many tongues, some clear and others softly muffled. The mystery itself becomes a kind of dialogue, a slow conversation across centuries. Beneath the surface, the city guards more secrets still. Advances in modern technology, like LiDAR scanning and ground-penetrating radar, have revealed traces of structures hidden beneath thick jungle and centuries of soil. These tools have uncovered new plazas, causeways, and buildings never seen by the human eye until recently. Yet, even with these glimpses, the city keeps its most intimate chambers hidden. Some passages remain sealed, doorways collapsed or concealed by earth, corridors twisting beneath stone floors. Rumors persist of vaulted chambers containing treasures of jade, obsidian, or bark paper codices inscribed with knowledge long thought lost. The possibility of hidden caches sparks gentle excitement among researchers, but also reminds us of the patient nature of discovery. These treasures will not be revealed quickly or easily. They wait in quiet darkness, as if inviting visitors to slow their breath and step lightly. The city's mysteries extend beyond the physical. They touch the very way the Maya understood their world, the rhythms of the cosmos, the cycles of life and death, the invisible threads linking humans to gods. Scholars continue to explore the meanings behind the complex calendar system. Why certain days were marked by omens, why specific cycles carried powerful symbolism. What role did these beliefs play in shaping decisions, from planting maize to waging war? Then there is the enigmatic Maya ball game, a sport played on courts scattered throughout the city. Though it was clearly important socially and spiritually, its precise rules and significance remain partly unknown. Was it a reenactment of cosmic battles, a political drama played out before the people, a sacred rite to honor gods of life and death? We can only imagine the soft thud of the rubber ball against stone, the rhythmic chants from the sidelines, the solemn intensity of players draped in jaguar skins and feathered headdresses. Or consider the myths and oral traditions that have survived, whispered from generation to generation. They blend history and legend in a way that is not always literal, but rich with meaning. Tales of gods descending from the stars, of underworld journeys and cosmic battles, of lost cities swallowed by the forestal, add a layer of mystery that colors the ruins with the soft glow of imagination and reverence. All these enigmas call for a gentle approach, one that honors patience, curiosity, and respect. To study this city is to embrace the unknown, to linger in the shadows where questions outnumber answers. Each new discovery unfolds slowly, like the delicate unfurling of a fern frond at dawn. There is beauty in this slow unfolding, in the sense that some secrets reveal themselves only to those who wait. As you rest in this imagined place, picture yourself standing before an undeciphered glyph. Its lines swirl and twist like smoke, its meaning lost to time but pulsing faintly with life. You cannot read it, but you feel its presence, an invitation to wonder, to dream, to be present with the mystery itself. In the quiet between discovery and understanding lies a kind of Pisa recognition that the past is not a puzzle to be solved hastily, but a gentle landscape to be explored with care and reverence. As twilight deepens over the canopy, and the distant call of night birds begins to rise, you take a slow breath and let the city's whispers settle softly around you. In the next part, we will explore how modern technology, like a soft beam of light, is cutting through the jungle's shadowed veilry, revealing the city's hidden paths and long-forgotten structures, and opening new doors in the story of this lost world. But for now, linger in the mystery. Let it cradle you like the gentle sway of leaves in a summer breeze. As the twilight deepens and the jungle's shadows stretch longer beneath the dense canopy, we turn our attention to the gentle illumination that modern technology has brought to the long-hidden wonders of the lost Mayan city. Imagine, if you will, a small group of explorers moving quietly through the tangled greenery. The humid air wraps softly around them, filled with the faint scent of wet earth, moss, and blooming flowers. Their footsteps press lightly against the carpet of decayed leaves, careful not to disturb the delicate balance of the forest floor. Above, a symphony of cicadas hums steadily, blending with distant bird calls and the rustling of leaves. Among their tools are instruments that seem almost magical beams of light that pulse invisibly through the branches, small drones gliding silently overhead, and sensors that peer beneath the surface of the earth and stone without so much as a footprint left behind. These technologies are patient and precise, gentle as a hand brushing away dust from an ancient manuscript. One of the most transformative tools in recent decades has been LiDAR, or light detection and ranging. Picture this: a device mounted on an aircraft above the jungle sends out millions of laser pulses every second. These pulses pass through the dense foliage, reaching the ground below, and bounce back to the sensor. The result is a three-dimensional map of the terrain beneath the trees, detailed enough to reveal the very outlines of buildings, causeways, and terraces, once thought lost beneath centuries of jungle growth. The effect is like peeling back a green veil that has obscured the city for hundreds of years. Suddenly, what once seemed a small cluster of ruins becomes a vast urban landscape, sprawling over hills and valleys. Pyramids emerge sharply from the earth, their steep steps climbing toward the sky. Long stone causeways stretch for miles, connecting distant neighborhoods and ceremonial centers. The city's complex planning becomes clearets, roads, plazas, ball courts, and reservoirs, all laid out with careful intention. Imagine looking at such a LiDAR map for the first time, the intricate geometry of the city glowing softly against the natural contours of the land. The subtle lines of irrigation channels, the grid of residential compounds, even the faint trace of terraces carved into hillsides to prevent erosion all come into view, as if by a gentle whisper from the past. Complementing LiDAR, ground-penetrating radar serves as another invaluable tool. This technology sends harmless radar waves into the soil, detecting hidden chambers, walls, and tunnels buried beneath centuries of sediment. It is a kind of quiet listening, sensing the hidden heartbeat of the earth and the structures buried within it. Through these signals, archaeologists discover buried rooms that escaped earlier notice, tunnels that might have been used for rituals or safe passage, and layers of occupation that reveal the city's long and complex history. Imagine a researcher gently sweeping a radar device over an open clearing, her eyes watching the screen carefully as it reveals a dark, rectangular shape beneath the ground, a hidden chamber, waiting patiently for its story to be told. No excavation has disturbed the surface yet. Only the soft pulse of technology has reached below, unveiling whispers from the earth. Then there are the small drones, silent watchers that soar above the treetops, capturing detailed aerial photographs and thermal images. These flying eyes can detect subtle variations in vegetation and soil temperature, clues to buried walls or hidden plazas beneath the jungle's thick canopy. Their quiet worry blends into the symphony of jungle sounds as they chart new paths through places impossible to reach by foot. Together, these modern methods have revolutionized our understanding of the lost city. Where once explorers hacked through vines with machetes and cleared forests in slow, painstaking labor, today's researchers navigate with digital precision and gentle care. This technology allows them to respect the fragile ecosystem and the sacredness of the ruins, while expanding knowledge at a pace both steady and sustainable. But technology alone cannot tell the full story. It is the patient, dedicated work of archaeologists, epigraphers, conservationists, and local communities that breathes life into the data these tools collect. Imagine a small team uncovering a previously unknown altar. They brush away centuries of leaf litter and moss with soft brushes, their movements slow and deliberate. Faded glyphs emerge, painted in shades of red and black, telling stories of kings, gods, and rituals. Each fragment is recorded meticulously, each detail catalogued with reverence. In the delicate balance between discovery and preservation, these scholars understand their role, not as conquerors, but as caretakers of memory. They listen to the stories the stones tell, piece together fragmented histories, and honor the living descendants of the Maya who keep these traditions alive. Visualize a nighttime camp at the edge of the ruins. Lanterns glow softly against the dark jungle backdrop. Researchers review their data, the glow of tablet screens illuminating thoughtful faces. Outside, the forest hums quietly, a reminder that the city belongs as much to nature as to history. Digital modeling and virtual reconstructions add another layer to this evolving exploration. Through computer-generated imagery, the lost city can be experienced anew. Pyramids rise once more, their limestone facades gleaming in imagined sunlight. Ceremonial plazas bustle with softly murmured conversations, flickering candlelight, and the slow turning of ceremonial dancers. These virtual journeys offer a gentle passage through time, inviting us to walk slowly through ancient streets, to hear the muted rhythms of life, and to feel the cool stone beneath our fingers. This blending of technology and imagination creates a bridge between past and present, between the silence of ruins and the beating pulse of living memory. It allows us to engage with history, not as distant observers, but as companions on a shared journey. As you listen, imagine the soft pulse of lasers slicing through the twilight canopy, the quiet whir of drones overhead, the gentle tapping of brushes revealing faded glyphs, and the glow of computer screens mapping the city's secrets. These are the tools that bring us closer to understanding, without disturbing the fragile peace of the jungle. In the next part, we will consider the future of this research, the ongoing efforts to preserve these ancient sites, and the careful balance between uncovering history and protecting it for those yet to come. But for now, let yourself rest in the calm illumination of this quiet exploration, like the last rays of a golden sunset fading behind ancient trees. As the first gentle light of dawn spills softly through the dense jungle canopy, painting leaves and ancient stones in hues of gold and green, we turn our gaze forward to a future where the story of this lost Mayan city continues to unfold slowly, patiently, with reverence. This future is shaped not only by the hands that uncover buried ruins, but by the hearts and minds committed to protecting, understanding, and honoring this delicate inheritance across generations yet to come. Imagine yourself standing beneath the towering ceiba tree, the sacred tree of life to the Maya, with its massive roots gripping the earth and its branches reaching upward toward the sky. Around you, a circle of researchers, local Maya elders, conservationists, and students gathers quietly. Their faces glow softly in the filtered sunlight, their voices low, weaving a tapestry of knowledge, tradition, and shared hope. Here, ancient wisdom meets modern science in a harmonious dance, creating a partnership that respects both the tangible and intangible heritage of the city. The future of archaeological research in this ancient city embraces an ethos of gentle discovery. New methods allow us to explore without disturbance, illuminating secrets while preserving the fragile balance between nature and history. Remote sensing technologies like LiDAR and ground-penetrating radar continue to reveal hidden structures beneath the jungle's thick embrace. Yet they do so without the need for heavy excavation or deforestation. Researchers work meticulously to ensure that every step forward treads lightly upon the earth, honoring the silence of centuries. Picture the soft glow of a tablet screen in the hands of a young archaeologist, mapping and modeling the ruins with precision and care. High-resolution 3D scans capture the tiniest cracks in limestone facades, the faded pigments of murals, and the delicate glyphs etched by ancient hands. These digital replicas become invaluable tools guiding physical restoration, aiding research, and offering virtual access to those who cannot visit in person. Through virtual reality, one might slowly wander through reconstructed plazas or stand beneath towering pyramids, hearing only the gentle rustle of leaves and the distant calls of tropical birds. This digital preservation is a gift, not only protecting the city's fragile stones from wear, but also extending its reach across the world, inviting a global community to share in its story at a gentle pace and in quiet reflection. Yet technology alone does not tell the whole tale. The heartbeat of this future lies in collaboration with indigenous Maya communities, the living descendants of the city's builders. Imagine elders recounting ancient stories, their voices steady and calm, carrying melodies of remembrance and reverence. Their knowledge, passed down through generations, fills in gaps left by stone and script. It shapes interpretations, ensuring that research honors cultural continuity rather than severing it. In this sacred partnership, language and ritual, song and ceremony breathe life into the silent ruins. Maya artisans might teach traditional crafts, recreating pottery and textiles, while spiritual leaders offer guidance on sacred spaces. Together, they form a bridge between past and present, a gentle thread woven through time. Education blossoms alongside research. Local schools embrace the city's heritage, integrating archaeology, history, and ecology into their lessons. Imagine classrooms filled with curious children, their eyes bright as they learn about their ancestors' achievements, not as distant myths, but as living legacies. Hands once used for ancient tools now hold brushes and scanners, training new generations as guardians of history and culture. Sustainability underpins all efforts. The delicate ecosystem of the jungle home to countless plants, animals, and microorganisms must be preserved alongside the ruins it shelters. Researchers collaborate with ecologists, crafting plans to minimize impact, protect endangered species, and restore degraded areas. Trails are designed thoughtfully to prevent erosion and disturbance, while reforestation projects gently heal scars left by earlier explorations. Imagine the soft rain falling on this living landscape, each drop a renewal, nurturing both forest and stone. The city's legacy endures, not only in history books, but in the vibrant, breathing jungle that enfolds it. Interdisciplinary research deepens understanding. Archaeologists work hand in hand with botanists, analyzing ancient pollen to reconstruct vanished forests. With climatologists studying past weather patterns that shaped human decisions. With anthropologists exploring social structures and cultural exchanges. In laboratories, delicate fragments of pottery and bone undergo chemical analysis, revealing traces of ancient foods, medicines, and pigments. Picture the slow, careful work in these labs, the gentle brushing of dirt, the focused gaze of researchers peering through microscopes, the quiet hum of instruments detecting minute traces of cacao or maize. These small details paint vivid pictures of daily life, enriching the grand narrative with textures of lived experience. Ethical reflection guides every step. Questions of ownership, access, and respect shape decisions. Efforts to repatriate artifacts to their rightful communities, to engage indigenous voices in research design, and to share findings openly mark a commitment to justice and respect. The city's story is no longer told solely by outsiders, but as a shared heritage woven into a tapestry of identity and pride. Imagine future visitors walking gently along shaded paths, their steps measured and quiet, their voices hushed with reverence. Picture meditations held beneath temple shadows, where the breeze carries the echoes of ancient prayers. The city breathes anew not as a static monument, but as a living testament to human creativity, resilience, and memory. As you relax into this vision, let the image of the ceiba tree linger, the timeless guardian, anchoring past, present, and future. Breathe deeply, feeling the steady rhythm of life that courses through stone and leaf, through history and hope. In the next part, we will explore the vital importance of preserving this fragile heritage, the delicate balance between exploration and protection, and how we, as stewards of history, can all contribute to keeping these stories alive. For now, rest gently in the promise of tomorrow, cradled by the soft embrace of ancient stones and emerald leaves. As the soft afternoon light filters tenderly through the thick canopy overhead, casting a mosaic of gentle shadows on the forest floor, we turn our thoughts toward preservation, the delicate, patient act of safeguarding the fragile traces of a lost city, so that its stories may ripple quietly through time. Preservation is not simply a practical task. It is a profound gesture of respect, a whispered promise to the past, and a gift to the future. It asks us to listen closely to the stones, the vines, the very earth itself, and to protect what remains from fading into silence. Picture yourself standing at the base of a weathered pyramid, its steps softened by centuries of rain and the slow embrace of moss and lichen. The air here is cool, thick with the subtle scent of damp earth, mingled with the faint perfume of orchids hidden among the trees. Around you, the jungle breathes softly alive with the distant call of birds and the gentle rustle of leaves stirred by a mild breeze. Every stone underfoot carries the weight of countless lives, their stories etched quietly in every crack and carving. The ruins, while majestic, are fragile, vulnerable to to the ceaseless passage of time and the slow, patient forces of nature. Rainfall seeps into tiny fissures, expanding and contracting with daily temperature shifts, threatening to crumble even the most carefully carved blocks. Roots from towering trees weave through the foundations, sometimes prying stones apart, other times binding them together in an unsteady embrace. Lichens and mosses spread a soft carpet over walls and statues, their colors shifting with the seasons, adding layers of living texture to the stone surfaces. Without careful preservation, these silent witnesses to history could be lost, their secrets eroded by the patient hand of decay. Preservation efforts, therefore, proceed with both urgency and great delicacy. They apply subtle consolidants, special materials that seep into cracks and strengthen the stone without altering its appearance, like a healer strengthening fragile bones. Imagine the slow, methodical work of these conservators. They study every surface, noting the fading pigments of murals, once vibrant with color, carefully regulating humidity and light levels in sheltered areas to prevent further deterioration. Small protective roofs, crafted from natural materials, shelter exposed carvings from rain and harsh sunlight, casting soft shadows that shift gently throughout the day. But preservation does not stop at stones and structures. The jungle itself, the very cradle of the city, is a vital part of this living heritage. It both conceals and protects the ruins, a breathing, growing guardian that has sheltered the city for centuries. To preserve the site means also preserving the forest of vibrant ecosystem that sustains countless species of plants, insects, birds, and mammals. Picture thoughtfully designed pathways weaving softly through the jungle, minimizing foot traffic impact and preventing erosion. Signs gently remind visitors to tread lightly, to listen quietly, to respect the profound silence. Reforestation efforts work patiently, planting native species to restore areas where earlier exploration or natural events caused damage. These efforts nurture the resilience of the landscape, ensuring the forest remains a sanctuary, not only for wildlife, but for history itself. Local communities, especially the descendants of the Maya, play an essential role in this stewardship. Their traditional knowledge, passed down through generations, informs conservation practices that honor cultural values and spiritual beliefs. Imagine elders gathering to share stories of the land and its spirits, teaching young people the sacred rituals and respectful ways of caring for ancestral sites. These living traditions enrich preservation efforts with meaning beyond the physical, weaving culture and history into one continuous thread. Educational programs empower these communities to take an active part in managing the site. Workshops train local residents in conservation techniques, site management, and sustainable tourism. These efforts create economic opportunities while fostering a deep sense of pride and responsibility. Visitors encounter not just ruins, but living cultures, experiencing a connection to the past that is vibrant and ongoing. Preservation also faces the quiet challenge of a changing climate. Increasingly frequent storms, shifting rainfall patterns, and rising temperatures threaten both the fragile ruins and the surrounding forest. Researchers monitor these subtle but persistent changes, adapting strategies to protect vulnerable areas. Erosion control, drainage improvements, and vegetation management become acts of quiet vigilance, a way of responding patiently to an evolving environment. Ethical considerations frame every decision. Questions arise about how much of the city should be excavated versus left untouched, how to balance scholarly inquiry with respect for sacred spaces, and how to protect the site from over-tourism and exploitation. These are not easy answers, but require thoughtful reflection and dialogue among scientists, local communities, governments, and international partners. Imagine a visitor pausing at a viewing platform, gazing across a sunlit plaza bordered by stone staircases and crumbling temples. They feel a gentle hum of history beneath their feet, a sense of reverence that quiets their breath. Their footsteps are soft, their voices hushed, as they walk slowly through a place both ancient and alive. As evening falls, the ruins are bathed in the silver light of the moon. The jungle around them sings with the voices of night creatures. The city rests once more, held safely in the hands of those who love and protect it. Preserving this whispered legacy is a responsibility shared by all who encounter it. It is a pledge to honor the hands that built these stones, the lives lived within their shadows, and the future generations who will come to listen. As you breathe in slowly, feel the quiet strength of this promise, the gentle stewardship of history, nature, and culture intertwined like roots beneath the earth. Let it settle softly within you, a calm light guiding your thoughts. In the next segment, we will journey deeper into the stories that continue to unfold, the ongoing discoveries that expand our understanding and keep the city's heartbeat alive. For now, rest peacefully, cradled in the warm embrace of ancient stones and emerald leaves. As the lush emerald canopy stretches far above, filtering sunlight into a soft mosaic of dappled gold and green, a gentle stillness settles over the ancient city, here, where time has folded layers of history beneath vines and moss. We embark on a journey of discovery, a slow, deliberate unfolding of secrets whispered across centuries. The lost Mayan city, long shrouded in mystery, reveals itself patiently to those who listen with care, inviting a calm, measured understanding of lives once lived beneath these heavy leaves. Imagine yourself walking quietly along a narrow jungle path. The ground beneath your feet is soft with fallen leaves and rich earth cushioning your steps as you move forward. The air is humid, carrying the subtle scent of damp soil mingled with delicate orchid blossoms and the faint sweetness of wild fruit hidden among the branches. Around you, the symphony of the jungle hums softly. The distant call of a toucan, the rustle of a small mammal in the underbrush, the gentle whisper of wind weaving through the towering ceiba and mahogany trees. With each step, you approach places where stone rises like silent sentinels from the earth-weathered pyramids, crumbling temples, wide plazas that once thrummed with life and ceremony. Archaeologists move with reverence. Here, their actions slow and deliberate, as if touching memories rather than just stone. Their tools are quiet, soft brushes, delicate trowels, sophisticated scanners emitting gentle pulses of light, and notebooks filled with careful observations. Their work is a conversation, a patient dialogue with the past, each gesture a question posed, and each discovery an answer received. Recent expeditions have brought to light astonishing insights, adding rich detail to the city's story. In a shaded clearing, faded murals emerge from layers of dirt and decay, revealing scenes of daily existence long vanished. Imagine farmers bent low over terraced fields, planting maize and beans with practiced hands, artisans molding clay pots on slow wheels, musicians crafting melodies on hollow flutes and soft drums, their rhythms marking festivals and rites. Though the colors are muted, these images pulse softly with life, bridging centuries with a shared human experience. Visualize a newly uncovered altar, its surface carved with intricate, swirling patterns, symbols of the sun, the moon, and sacred animals. Nearby, a small grouping of ceramics, bowls, cups, and vessels rests as offerings, silent witnesses to rituals once performed beneath the vast open sky. Researchers study these relics with quiet awe, piecing together their meanings, tracing connections between faith, power, and community. Each new finding weaves a thread into the city's evolving tapestry, revealing a complex and vibrant civilization. The excavation of a grand ball court, carefully marked by sculpted stone boundaries and ritual spaces, uncovers not just a sport, but a sacred tradition, a contest intertwined with spiritual significance and communal identity. Picture the silence over this space, broken only by the imagined thud of the rubber ball and the slow, steady pulse of anticipation. Evidence of long-distance trade paints an even broader picture. Traces of jade, obsidian, and brightly colored feathers found far from their source reveal networks of exchange spanning vast territories. Imagine silent caravans moving along ancient causeways, the footsteps of merchants muted by soft earth, laden with precious goods and stories that cross forests, rivers, and mountains. A cultural web connecting diverse peoples and ideas. Back in laboratories, softly lit by gentle lamps, researchers examine tiny shards of pottery and fragments of bone. Advanced chemical analyses reveal traces of cacao, maize, and other staples, offering intimate glimpses into the city's diet and agriculture. Pollen samples, carefully extracted from soil layers, reconstruct vanished orchards and fields, where fruit trees and crops once flourished. These delicate details enrich the broad historical narrative, adding texture and warmth to a world long past. The painstaking work of deciphering hieroglyphs continues with steady progress. Newly uncovered inscriptions etched on temple walls, carved on stone stele, and painted within tomb chambers shed light on rulers' names, ceremonial dates, and intricate political relationships. Imagine scholars poring over these symbols by soft lamplight, slowly unlocking a language that blends history, myth, and sacred narrative into a single, flowing story. Beyond kings and ceremonies, discoveries illuminate the social fabric of the city. Burial sites range from simple family plots to elaborate tombs adorned with precious offerings, revealing a layered society of varied status and roles. Imagine standing before an ancient tomb, its walls etched with protective symbols and depictions of sacred journeys. The quiet dignity of these resting places speaks across time, connecting us intimately with lives once lived, loves once held, and legacies left behind. Artifacts tied to spiritual practice, ceremonial masks, incense burners, and intricately decorated ritual vessels offer glimpses into the city's sacred life. Picture the flickering flame of a candle casting soft shadows on stone walls, the slow rhythm of chanting voices rising in the evening air, and the warm scent of copal incense curling gently into the night. These elements evoke a world where the sacred and everyday were intertwined, where cosmic cycles shaped human experience, and where faith infused each moment with meaning. As these discoveries accumulate, the city reveals itself not as a frozen relic, but as a living memory, growing ever richer with every patient excavation and careful study. Each unearthing is a quiet conversation across team dialogue that invites us to listen slowly, to reflect deeply, and to honor the delicate balance of human endeavor and natural world. Breathe deeply now, and picture the soft glow of lanterns illuminating a clearing as night falls. Hear the muted murmur of voices sharing newfound knowledge, the gentle tap of a brush revealing a hidden carving, the steady heartbeat of history awakening once again beneath the protective arms of the jungle. Let this peaceful image cradle your thoughts, settling your mind as you prepare to drift gently into rest. In the next part, we will explore the enduring mysteries, those questions still unanswered, the symbols yet undeciphered, and the hidden chambers waiting silently to reveal their secrets. For now, rest quietly in the gentle unfolding of discovery, surrounded by the timeless rhythm of stone and leaf, past and present. As the forest hush deepens and stars begin their quiet procession across the darkening sky, our thoughts turn to what has not yet been discovered, to the mysteries still cocooned beneath layers of earth and vine, to the riddles etched in stone whose meanings remain just beyond our reach. For all that has been found, deciphered, and pieced together, the lost Mayan city still holds tightly to many of its secrets. It remains a place of partial knowing, quiet invitation to wonder, to question, and to return. Imagine walking through the ancient heart of the city at twilight. The air is warm and still, carrying the faint scent of crushed leaves and cooling stone. Moss creeps over stairways, tree roots stretch like fingers across carved terraces, and long shadows soften the angular ruins. As you pass by half-uncovered structures and walls laced with faded glyphs, you sense that there is more here than meets the eye. Not everything is visible. Not everything is meant to be. Some questions are straightforward. What were the true purposes of certain buildings whose functions do not fit cleanly into known categories? Square platforms arranged in strange configurations, long corridors with no doorways, rooms too narrow to walk through, but clearly designed with intent. Archaeologists have uncovered such spaces and puzzled over their meaning. Were they symbolic, ceremonial, used for storage, reflection, or isolation? The answers, if they exist, are obscured, buried under centuries of silence and stone. Other mysteries lie in the glyphs themselves. The Mayan script is one of the most sophisticated writing systems of the ancient world, and yet much of it still resists complete translation. Each newly discovered stela, altar, or tomb inscription brings more clues and more questions. Glyphs representing places now lost, people not yet identified, or deities whose roles have changed over time, offered tantalizing glimpses of broader narratives. Imagine a carved panel depicting a ruler offering gifts to an unnamed figure, surrounded by unfamiliar symbols. The scene is vivid, the action clear, but the context remains murky. The why, the how, the what it meant, these details are locked behind the subtle curves and lines of the ancient script. Some ruins appear to serve multiple purposes across centuries. A temple may have begun as a modest shrine, later expanded, reoriented, or buried and rebuilt upon entirely. These changes, made across generations, create layers of meaning that resist easy interpretation. One level speaks to a solar deity, another to the moon, and a third to a ruler long forgotten. Without written records explaining the transitions, researchers are left to piece together meaning from architecture and alignments alone. The stories are there, but fragmented like shards of pottery that don't quite fit. Then there are the physical voids, subterranean chambers, visible on LiDAR scans, but still unexplored. Hollow spaces beneath pyramids that resist excavation due to fragility or sacred importance. Deep, stone-lined wells, filled with sediment that may conceal offerings or nothing at all. Some of these places are too unstable to explore safely. Others are protected by law or spiritual respect, and so they remain undisturbed, cloaked in stillness, their contents hidden. What lies within them? Ceremonial caches, royal tombs, forgotten libraries of stone, or simply silence. Natural processes also obscure the past. Rain has washed away paint from murals, leaving outlines that are hard to read. Earthquakes have shifted buildings out of alignment. Humidity causes inscriptions to flake, colors to fade, and surfaces to crumble. Some knowledge is not lost by human forgetfulness, but by nature's slow erasure. Imagine a staircase once lined with colorful depictions of gods and animals, now blank but for a few patches of faint blue or ochre. The stories once told, their cosmic myths, calendrical cycles, dynastic triumphs are gone, save for fragments. Scholars reconstruct them as best they can, comparing to similar finds, filling gaps with cautious conjecture. But even the most detailed research cannot resurrect what time has consumed entirely. Some mysteries are cultural. The exact nature of certain rituals remains only partially known. Offerings found in pits, obsidian blades, animal bones, burned incense, shells from distant seas, ceremonies tied to fertility, warfare, or astronomical events. But how were they performed? What words were spoken? What gestures made? No one living remembers. The rituals passed out of practice centuries ago, their forms surviving only in hints, their meanings transformed through oral tradition or forgotten entirely. Other enigmas are celestial. The city's layout is clearly aligned with the stars' solstice points, planetary cycles, lunar phases, but the full significance of certain alignments remains elusive. Some buildings face the sunrise on precise days of the year, while others line up with constellations only visible briefly. Were these orientations used for agriculture, prophecy, ceremony? Or were they symbolic maps linking earth to sky? The patterns are deliberate, but interpretation varies. Even among scholars, debates continue, gentle and respectful, like a whispered conversation between centuries. And then there are the personal mysteries, the lives of individuals, workers, children, midwives, scribes are mostly invisible. We find their bones, their homes, their tools, but not their names. We know how kings were buried, but not what lullabies a mother sang to her child, or how a potter felt about the clay he shaped each morning. These are the absences we feel most deeply, not because they are dramatic, but because they are familiar. They mirror our own daily rhythms, our own fleeting joys and sorrows. Despite all that has been uncovered, the city remains a place of unknowns, a sacred library missing many of its pages. And perhaps that is part of its power, the way it reminds us that not all questions have answers. Some truths are meant to be sensed rather than known, to be approached gently, not solved. Breathe slowly and imagine the quiet of the forest at night. The ancient city sleeps, holding its secrets like seeds beneath the soil. They may blossom one day, or they may remain hidden forever. Either way, their presence shapes the air we breathe here. In the next segment, we will shift from questions to tools, from what we do not know to how we seek to know. You'll see how modern technology is opening new paths through old forests, revealing the city from above and below, bringing fresh light to stone long lost in shadow. For now, rest gently. Let your thoughts settle into the soft folds of the unknown, where questions drift like fallen leaves across ancient ground. As the soft light of dawn begins to break gently through the jungle canopy, casting long golden beams across dew-covered leaves and stone ruins cloaked in mist, we find ourselves looking not backward now, but forward toward the future of exploration and the quiet marvels of modern discovery. Though the ancient Mayan city may appear still and unchanging, wrapped in the embrace of time and nature. It is, in truth, at the center of a quiet revolution in archaeology. Today, we walk the same paths as those who came before, but now we see with new eyes, guided not just by intuition and experience, but by satellites, drones, lasers, and data whispered through the canopy. Picture a small team of researchers gathered at the edge of the forest, their camp shaded by palms, surrounded by maps, field notebooks, and humming equipment. The jungle hums gently around them, alive with the songs of birds and the rustling of leaves. In their hands is a tool not of destruction, but of revelation, a device that pulses beams of light through the treetops, mapping the hidden world below without disturbing a single vine or stone. This is LiDAR, light detection and ranging, a technology that uses laser light to scan landscapes in 3 dimensions. Mounted on planes or drones, it sweeps across the forest like a quiet breeze, sending out pulses that penetrate vegetation and return detailed images of the Earth's surface. What appears as dense, impenetrable jungle to the human eye is, through LiDAR, transformed into a crisp, layered map of terrain, architecture, and hidden features. Imagine standing in a field that appears, to all eyes, to be nothing more than trees and uneven earth. But through LiDAR imaging, faint lines, emergent roads, stepped terraces, collapsed buildings, ceremonial causeways stretching across once settled plains. What was invisible becomes visible, as if the forest itself had quietly moved aside to share its memories. These high-resolution scans have revealed entire networks of Mayan cities, previously unknown clusters of structures, irrigation channels, reservoirs, ball courts, and plazas hidden for centuries beneath vines and soil. In some areas, discoveries have tripled known settlement sizes overnight. Fields once thought to be wild are, in fact, carefully managed landscapes, evidence of sophisticated urban planning, water engineering, and agricultural mastery. Researchers now walk these rediscovered paths with gentle steps and cautious hands. Drones float silently above, capturing images from angles previously unreachable. Thermal imaging picks up heat signatures from buried walls. Ground-penetrating radar whispers back reflections of foundations and voids. Each tool adds a layer to our understanding, a quiet chorus of technologies working together to illuminate the past without disturbing it. But even as machines grow more precise, the human element remains essential. Data must be interpreted, patterns must be understood, and meaning must be drawn from context. Scholars, students, and indigenous guides work side by side, combining modern methods with traditional knowledge, blending science with storytelling. Imagine a young archaeologist poring over LiDAR maps with an elder who knows the land by memory, who recognizes, from the curve of a hill or the angle of a stone, something once told by grandparents long ago. Fieldwork, too, evolves. Excavations are now planned with care and conservation in mind. Instead of large-scale digging, researchers open small, targeted windows into the earth, using surgical precision to extract information while preserving the broader landscape. Preservation is woven into every stage, photographing before touching, covering artifacts immediately after exposure, restoring soil and vegetation once a study concludes. These new technologies also allow researchers to return to old sites with new questions. Structures previously thought unremarkable are reconsidered in light of their relation to newly discovered roads or reservoirs. Temples are re-examined for astronomical alignments made clearer by 3D modeling. Old field notes, once limited by the tools of their time, are now paired with satellite imagery, bringing forgotten sketches to vivid life. Imagine exploring a digital reconstruction of the city, walking through an ancient marketplace as it might have looked 1,000 years ago. You see roofed stalls, pathways bustling with motion, children darting between elders, merchants displaying jade ornaments and cocoa beans. These reconstructions, based on measurements and models, allow researchers and the public alike to enter history with eyes open, minds still, and hearts quietly engaged. Education plays a central role in the future of this work. Remote learning platforms now bring the discoveries of the jungle into classrooms around the world. Students in cities far removed from the ore can manipulate 7D models, explore interactive maps, and listen to indigenous experts share stories of the land. This democratization of knowledge ensures that the city is not merely studied, it is shared and cherished by many. International cooperation deepens. Institutions and governments collaborate to ensure respectful research, data sharing, and ethical stewardship. Grants fund interdisciplinary work. Geologists, climate scientists, linguists, and ecologists all bring their perspectives to bear, expanding what it means to understand a place. Even artists are welcomed into this process, drawing upon science to reimagine what once was and what may still lie hidden. But perhaps most importantly, the future of exploration honors the past without erasing it. It asks permission before proceeding. It listens before speaking. It slows down. For in this city, as in all ancient places, discovery is not just about finding what was lost. It is about approaching the past with gentleness, humility, and care. As you exhale slowly, imagine the forest from above, its green canopy endless, its secrets carefully folded into every hill and hollow. And now imagine a soft golden thread of light tracing those secrets, one by one, revealing without disturbing, uncovering without unmaking. This is how the future speaks to the past, not with haste or noise, but with quiet clarity and wonder. In the next part, we'll reflect on the enduring importance of understanding this history, why it matters, not only to archaeologists, but to us all. Why this lost city, still whispering beneath the jungle floor, is part of our shared story, and why preserving it matters more than ever. But for now, rest gently in the glow of quiet progress, where technology and tradition walk hand in hand, and the past stretches softly into the horizon of tomorrow. The forest is still now. Dusk has passed, and night has begun to settle like a soft blanket across the ancient canopy. Above, a handful of stars begin to blink into view, their pale light drifting down between the branches, falling gently onto the time-worn stones below. The Great Pyramid lies in shadow. The steps are cool now, smooth from centuries of sun and storm. A breeze stirs the leaves overhead, carrying with it a sense of something sacred, something that has waited quietly for far longer than you or I have drawn breath. And here, in this hush, we turn our thoughts not only to what has been uncovered, but to what remains. Not the buried structures or the undeciphered glyphs, but the intangible treasure: memory, meaning, and care. The past does not belong to us. We are only its temporary stewards. And so, the story of this lost Mayan city must end, not in celebration or triumph, but in reflection, in a calm, respectful call to protect what has been revealed and to preserve what still sleeps beneath the roots. To understand preservation is to understand vulnerability. Though the city's stone bones have weathered 1,000 years, they are not unbreakable. The carvings are shallow now, thinned by rain and wind. The plaster that once lined temple interiors is brittle, flaking like dried petals. The pigments once vivid with reds, blues, and yellows drawn from minerals and plants fade more with each passing season. Even the sacred cenotes, once shimmering and clear, are darkened by debris and slow erosion. In earlier centuries, such places were not preserved, they were exploited. Colonizers, collectors, and adventurers often arrived not with reverence, but with tools and haste. Statues were chiseled loose and carted away. Tombs were emptied, their offerings scattered to private collections. Sacred stones were smashed to make roads or buildings. The forest, rich with memory, was cleared with indifference. And so much was lost, not just the objects themselves, but the context, the meanings, the stories etched between layers of soil and ritual. But that world has changed, or rather, it is changing, slowly and perhaps not completely. Yet today, archaeologists and conservators approach these ruins with care rather than conquest. They come not to own, but to listen, to sit quietly with the city, to ask permission before lifting the earth. Imagine a small team of researchers gathered in silence as a burial site is uncovered. They wear gloves. Their voices are low. Brushes move slowly across bone and stone, tracing outlines in dust. Each object is documented its placement, angle, relation to nearby items, so that, even once removed, its story remains whole. Some are left undisturbed. Not every chamber needs to be opened. Sometimes respect outweighs curiosity. Preservation today is not only physical, it is cultural, spiritual, and ethical. Increasingly, descendants of the Maya, the inheritors of these traditions, play central roles in excavation, interpretation, and stewardship. Their knowledge, passed down orally, adds layers of understanding inaccessible to texts or data. It is they who best understand what it means to protect a place that is not only ancient, but alive. A place where memory and identity are woven into every carved lintel and hidden cave. In the highlands and lowlands of Guatemala, Belize, and Mexico, community groups act as guardians of ruins near their villages. They plant trees to hold soil, repair trails washed out by floods, and gently guide visitors toward appropriate behavior. They train their children to respect the stones, not as relics, but as family, as the silent ancestors who still whisper through root and rain. Tourism, when handled with care, becomes a tool for preservation. Guided tours led by local experts educate travelers in both history and etiquette. Walking paths are built to prevent erosion. Temples are roped off not to distance, but to protect. Visitors learn to view the ruins not as amusement, but as invitation, a space to feel small, to feel wonder, to feel connected across time. Education is another pillar. Museums and virtual exhibits now bring the city into homes and classrooms around the world. With a tablet or computer, a student in a distant city can navigate a 3D rendering of the central plaza, examine a reconstructed mural, or rotate a replica of a carved mask. These digital tools reduce the pressure on the physical site while extending its reach. They transform curiosity into care, knowledge into empathy. Governments, too, have begun to take more active roles. Legal protections exist now for ancient sites. Looting is prosecuted. New developments must be preceded by archaeological surveys. There are challenges of course funding, enforcement, political will, but the framework is there. Each law, each permit, each protected hectare is a promise to the past, a small act of listening. But perhaps the greatest act of preservation is the simplest: to walk gently, to slow down, to understand that history is not something we hold in our hands, but something we live within. Every step we take through the ruins leaves an imprint. Every story we share becomes part of the memory. Imagine returning one day, not to uncover, but simply to be, to sit beneath the same tree where a scribe once rested after carving glyphs in fresh plaster, to walk the edge of a ball court, listening to the echoes of shouts long faded, to stand in the plaza at dusk and look up not at stone, but at Star's End, feel the same vastness the city's builders once felt, the same pull toward meaning, the same quiet awe. Let that feeling settle into you now, that soft awareness, that recognition that time is not a wall, but a long, slow current, and we are drifting gently in its flow. The city beneath the forest will continue to yield its secrets, some in our lifetime, some never, but the choice to protect it, to walk slowly, to remember deeply, to care's ours to make. And so, as the night deepens and the jungle wraps the stones once more in darkness, let your thoughts drift like leaves on a quiet river. Know that the city endures, not only because it was built to last, but because it is being watched over by scientists, by elders, by you. This is not an ending. The story of this place will continue long after we sleep. And that is the quiet power of preservation. And now, as our journey draws to a close, let the quiet settle in. You've traveled far tonight though. Your body has not moved. Your mind has wandered through time, through vines and stone, through memories left etched in the earth beneath a canopy of stars. The path we followed was winding, but never hurried. It took us through plazas once full of ceremony, along forest trails worn smooth by centuries of footsteps, and into the carved silence of forgotten temples. It has brought us to a place where the past breathes slowly, patiently, waiting to be remembered. The city we visited together may no longer echo with the voices of its builders, its priests, its dancers, or its scribes, but it still lives. Not in the sound of conquest or collapse, but in the gentle persistence of stone, in the curve of an old wall still catching sunlight, in the faint paint on a broken shard of pottery, in the patient rhythm of leaves falling through jungle air, just as they have for 1,000 years. There was a time when this place was filled with life, when fires burned warmly in family hearths, when markets bustled with color and trade, when rulers rose to speak from high platforms to those gathered below. That life, though long past, is not gone. It lingers. It murmurs softly in the roots and rocks, in the lines of glyphs that still whisper names, seasons, prayers. And tonight, you listened. You listened to the rhythms of work and ritual, to the rise of a civilization that mapped the stars and fed thousands, to its myths, its beliefs, its struggles, and its wisdom. You heard the questions that remain unanswered, the gaps in knowledge, the ruins still buried, the chambers sealed by time. And you heard, too, the calm efforts of those who uncover gently, who ask permission before entering the silence, who let the forest speak first. There is comfort in knowing that some things do not need to be solved, only respected, that the past is not just a place of answers, but of stories, some complete, others incomplete, and all deserving of care. The city reminds us of that. It is not a puzzle to conquer. It is a companion to visit, to sit with, to listen to. So now breathe slowly, in through your nose, out through your mouth. Let the air feel warm and heavy like the jungle after rain. Let your limbs sink into stillness like roots into soil. There is nothing more you need to do, nothing more you need to remember. The journey is behind you, and the city calm, quiet, eternal remains, resting beneath the stars. Let your thoughts fade gently like mist lifting from stone. Let the echoes of ancient footsteps grow distant. The fires in the temples have gone out. The plazas are empty now. The forest hums, a lullaby of insects and leaves. The city sleeps again, and so should you. Good night.